I'm Drex DeFord, President of Cybersecurity and Risk at This Week Health and the 229 Project. Our mission is healthcare transformation powered by community. Welcome to UnHack, where we navigate healthcare security challenges together because cyber safety is patient safety. Let's get started. Hey everyone, I'm Drex. Welcome to UnHack the podcast. I have Stephen Ramirez with me today. Hey, Stephen.
Hey, Drex, good to be with you.
Tell us a little bit about your job and where you work and all the good things.
Well, good to be with you again. Kicking off 2026 with a ton of stuff going on here at Renown. So, Renown Health up in Northern Nevada. 4 hospitals in the area. We have a health plan that we recently did a partnership with Kaiser, which we can dive into a little bit further on to create Kaiser Nevada. So, some exciting stuff on that. A lot of fun work with that going on as well, and a lot of other cool stuff going on. I am our CISO, so Chief Information Security and Technology Officer, although I'm saying my T's getting smaller by the day because we do have some other leaders, because I used to own everything across the board, and now we just have Service Desk, Microsoft, ServiceNow, IT governance, and of course security and all those components.
Interesting.
Still a little bit of other technology, but
because we do the CISO summits and we do other events together. I see more and more of that kind of stuff happening. The CISO, the CTO come together. Also the CISO, CTO ascending to the CIO job. So that's kind of an interesting trend. The question I have for you is, like, when you see tension between, because this is a topic that comes up with us all the time too, when you see tension between speed and innovation and security and tech architecture, like, who wins? How do you make the call when that's a situation that you're seeing?
Well, it was a lot easier when it was just me fighting my internal demons. But we just created an enterprise architecture vertical. And we also have some other functions because we're going through a big Databricks build out in the cloud, which I know we'll probably touch on a lot of the components to that. So creating a basically cloud security program overnight. But I think that goes to your CIO and your overall organizational risk tolerance and appetite, that here at Renown, security wins. So we just have the mindset of security by design. So what's really good about me having a lot of the team till we started to reposition it into like the rightful towers that it should have is that everybody still has that mindset. So we don't come up a lot of times with just the rock, paper, scissors, but I am very good at that. But we don't have a lot of friction, which is really good, that we don't have politics. We don't have a lot of that. I like to say that's why it's really fun to work in kind of the medium large versus some of the bigger sometimes, that we're able to move the needle a lot quicker. But yeah, I think that just goes to our overall just risk view as an organization, that security always does take precedence, but instead of being the department of no, it's how. Like, we've got to be at the table, be able to negotiate, do a lot of different components to, not be obstructors, but a lot of that could just be done with good governance. So I think that we do a good job of that makes those awkward conversations down the road a little less frequent. So
I know you've got a good boss there too. And so talk a little bit about kind of the power of a good boss and how having somebody like that who has your back, who helps drive the prioritization, turns out to be a really big deal.
Yeah, Chuck, I know a lot of you guys know Chuck. He's an amazing boss. I always say that I'm sometimes the deputy CISO. Like, he's very passionate about security. So that makes my job very easy when I have a leader that's very security conscious, but other leaders that are very security conscious. Like with our recent conflict going on with Iran, I sent an update out from a lot of the various sources, a lot from our friends in our group chats, to legal, compliance, Chuck, marketing, communications, and all of that. And of course, getting some great feedback. We ended up sending out an organizational wide message on some different hygiene, but it's just having those relationships that we built over the years that just makes Chuck's job easier when have those other partners. Like, my chief compliance officers become one of my good friends and partner in crime on that, because again, it's easier to have them. We now have an enterprise risk management vertical. So have that being built out as part of our thing, a dedicated leader to that, because we're doing a lot more self-insurance internally. So again, having more skin in the game. So like, if we're looking at like things like, for example, non-IT supported applications, I brought it up to my friends and colleagues that I don't need my application VP hounding people. This is an enterprise risk management problem. So I take that outside of IT, and then collectively we just work as a three-headed monster to tackle this stuff. So it's a lot easier when you have friends, and instead of security or IT trying to hound you, to kind of have that support outside of it. So
Yeah. So kind of thinking about all of this, great connections, great relationships, building those bridges across different departments. There have been a lot of major breaches, a lot of crazy things have happened in the last few years. Tell me about how those events and the work that you're doing, how does all that arrange into conversations with the board? What are conversations with the board like at Renown?
So we just did our quarterly updates that roll up to our audit and compliance of the board. So we have our board steering committee that oversees all audit and compliance matters. So I do that with my partner in crime, our chief compliance officer. So again, we go through, we update key initiatives, key risks, key areas going on in the industry. Like, for example, we know for a long time, social engineering has been huge on people calling the service desk. We have an HR service line. So a bad guys was able to get that number and try to call around to then call our service desk, but we have controls in place that we're able to thwart that. But it's just showing you really the importance of that. We have call recordings that we can then show how calm and collected these people are trying to talk to service desk agents. And that really helped drive our investment and initiative with Clear. So saying that we have a great process at verification now, but it's really getting to the necessity of having that next step for ID verification. God bless my friend Jim Bowie. We say he's the founding father of a lot of those processes.
Yeah.
Great partner. Him and his team have been amazing to really be one of the first out of the gate that my team synced up with him before we inked the deal to get some good lessons learned and everything like that. So really just articulating real events to them are what's really most meaningful. And then just, again, keeping it real, and then really just showing them where our investments, keeping them out of the paper. So
that call recording tidbit, I've heard you talk about that before, taking those calls, using those calls as training for people to listen to, and then kind of have that, like, this sounds like a real doctor. This sounds like a real person who's really in trouble and needs for us to reset their password. Like, those things are really useful for post-game training activities.
Yeah, and that's why again, from talking to Chuck, that some other leaders might think service desk is a core tech, but we see that as a security initiative that, again, you're trying to enter our organization, you have questions that we're going to go through verification process. I always use the airport example. You got to go up to TSA. So you use Clear there. So we're like, things have gone through, but you have to show your ID, you get your face signed, or you show your boarding pass or ID. It's like you're getting two-factored along as you go.
Yeah.
And you go through security, and then you have to show your boarding pass to get on the plane. So it's like, it's no different from concepts that we're using in our real lives to really how we want to handle identity as an organization. So having real tidbits, we always say the close encounters, I think those are great to really show not only your investments, but just, again, that this is what guys are doing out there. So we need to make sure that we're focusing in on those areas, especially with 80% of attacks being identity based. So.
Yeah, I want to ask about resilience too. Tell me a little bit about what you're doing. The phrase sort of minimum viable hospital comes up on a regular basis when we're all together. Talk a little bit about your resilience planning and the work you're doing.
I think in a lot of these areas that we've made a bigger focus on our just shoring up our downtime procedures. We just did a recent tabletop to really make sure that people are able to go through and do what we need to, look for single points of failure, see how we can fine tune that. We know it's always very uncomfortable without technology.
Yeah.
And then that's going to help us drive different investments in technology. We're doing a huge data center migration right now. So we're going to have more of the high availability and really focus on resiliency. So we've made a big investment too on like data protection as well as data recoverability with good partner. I know Rubrik for a lot of different tools on just having something in the black box to looking at the different layers from your 365 to your identity. And now that we've moved to CrowdStrike after all these years, there's some really cool integrations and plugins that we're looking at this feature through Rubrik, because you have Rubrik identity that you can actually do a identity rollback. So if Drex gets through all of these layers that we've talked about, goes through it and is doing malicious activity, that we can actually do a rollback to a point in time with the integration with that. So that's integrations have been huge to us. That's really what's helped us move partners strategically to really see where we can do these various integrations that are a lot more favorable to really trip up the bad guys sooner.
So I have to ask about this because we can't have a show without talking about artificial intelligence. So tell me what you're doing with AI in your security stack today. And maybe what I'm really asking is what's real and what's hype? What's happening with AI in security today?
Again, our CIO is great on us not being the trend of first out of the gate to change red objects. So now that we've progressed into AI, I think people understand true capability of AI and how we can actually operationalize it. So we're looking at Copilot. We have a lot of people on Copilot, but really, how are we going to be able to enhance and get more adoption of people using that across the board? And we're also kicking off an initiative to build out Databricks in the cloud. So I think that's going to set up the layer for us to actually have true AI hype. We're working with DAX for our doctors. We're looking at it for nurses. So I guess the ambient component is there. And I think that's very a low-hanging fruit from an AI perspective.
Yeah.
But also looking at other areas. I know that our new EDNA leader and Chuck are going to some various conferences to start to look at like the Claude and other healthcare versions of that to see how we can use that technology. It's come a long way on that right now. I mean, I have all of that blocked to your point that we've set up guardrails. So this is our approved, this is our non-approved. So it looks like we're gonna have to be able to set that up. So we've made additional investments also in like DSPM to really make sure that we know our data, that we're blocking the things that we should and shouldn't be, but to you really enable the business to move into these new AI-based ecosystems, because we do have the technology now. CrowdStrike has an agent. We use Netscope that has a lot of different controls that we can go through. And really, again, always say bumper bowling. We only want people to hit what they're supposed to hit.
Right.
Just having that out there with AI and us kind of being, I shouldn't say late adopter, but being more thoughtful and thorough on how we want to adopt AI as an organization, that allows us to catch up from a security perspective, that we're able to have security by design and a lot of these controls in place when we're looking at rolling this out. So
it's complicated. I mean, there's so many different things that are coming at you. Is there a framework that you use when you evaluate end users coming to you with, I want AI this and AI that, and obviously the Copilot stuff that you're doing? How do you catch and prioritize and manage that? What's the framework look like?
So we use an internal process called phase gate. So it's like a governance process that people have to put in ideas and requests, and it's reviewed by our phase gate committee. They'll look at really application rationalization. That's where we do our security assessments, look at the whole ball of wax of what this is and what value it's supposed to be bringing to the organization. Before it gets out of idea phase, then we have to do an SBAR. So then that's presented at the President's Council. They have to look at it from the dollars and cents, but also like what value is it bringing to the organization. So I think good governance really helps us just set us up for success on looking at that. And everything has some kind of AI to that. So we initially set up an AI policy on using NIST, using a lot of just other best practice on what we should and shouldn't be looking at in partnership with our quality and safety, as well as our compliance and privacy team. So we have that set up. And now our new data and analytics leader, she's really setting our AI policy for the organization and a lot of those various other guardrails on what we want to look at with our focus on platform AI. So we're going to really look at the Epics, the Microsofts, I'll just make up another name, like the CrowdStrikes of the world, like partners that we have relationships with versus us having to go out and build it ourselves. So the whole build versus buy discussion that we've just really married up to that idea that we're going to really focus on platform-based AI. So
we could do another whole show talking about build versus buy, but this idea too, we hear a lot of folks talking about for the partners we already trust when they're rolling out AI components, we spend a little less time kind of worrying about those or beating ourselves up around doing those investigations compared to something brand new that's coming in that we kind of have to take it through the whole process. It sounds like your governance process applies It's the same governance process for an AI thing as it is for anything else that would come through the pipeline. You don't have any special AI.
Just another set of eyes. It's the way we look at it. So we have our enterprise analytics leader that will look at it and or set the framework. So yeah, we're not going to create a special, because if it's AI today, it's quantum computing tomorrow, and we'll just be trying to ever, like cybersecurity, the same focus that we want to kind of have an all risk approach. So more of an all holistic technology approach that we just have strong governance and intake that will be able to really just shape what we're doing. So
you talk about the value of these projects as they go through the phase gates, and what's the business plan? What's the value? So when you walk into the CFO's office, when you and your internal co-executive internal partner on one of these projects walk into the CFO office, how do you frame those conversations, and how do you talk about risk as part of those conversations?
Our CFO, before they sign off on everything, the great thing is like they have to have the security review on all DocuSign. So it's like we have strong enough governance that it's the assumption that if you see my name on that we know we put it through and we looked at it from a risk perspective. But I think that's really the importance of this intake process, that we're looking at all of these things, having these discussions, and then they're having that from the SBAR level as well, to have the value-based discussions as well. And we have enough different layers. We're all friends here. That's a great organization here that we're able to talk through a lot of what is your strategic plan? What are we doing with these different components? For example, Databricks, we're bringing that out. We're building in Azure. So I really didn't feel like I had the program I needed from a cloud perspective. So I got investment in funding to hire a cloud security architect that starts in a few weeks. We're, buying a Netscope plugin for data protection. We're getting the CrowdStrike cloud pieces, like all of these different layers that you would think, I know you should be treating on-prem and cloud very similar, but they're really not. So making sure that we have our hybrid environment fully scalable from our secure landing zones to those pieces. So being able to have those discussions when the ROI and SBAR that are presented to President's Council and our leadership team, they know that we had those discussions from a security perspective. We have our tools, we have the people, we have our partners that ensure that we're successful in that. So that's just how you do there. It's about having partnerships, especially on these bigger projects. And I think our intake process does a very good job of making sure that we just ask that blunt question on how's this going to be supported? Have we looked at it from a security perspective? How's this going to integrate? What's the importance of data? And specifically with AI, like defining what AI isn't. Because there's obviously the AI like Copilot versus machine learning. Machine learning, if we don't have good data, hence why we're doing our Databricks project, like a lot of different organizations, then we're never going to fully be able to do machine learning, decision support, and a lot of that.
Bigger projects.
So we get that perspective that it's crawl, run, walk, fly, but you need to be able to do that well before we can do all these fancy things. But the other low-hanging fruit stuff, the chat GPTs, the copilots, that of the world, we feel comfortable with our controls, and of course getting the HIPAA and healthcare versions.
Yeah. That's good. The crawl, run, walk, fly. Fly is the part I've not heard people sort of talk about. Where'd that come from?
I heard that I love that. I heard that somebody else, I'm giving credit to somebody out there but it's like, because we all talk about run, but it's like run, it's just like we all want to fly. We want to excel.
I like that. Plagiarism is the most sincere form of flattery. And so somebody gets credit for coming up with that. I don't invent any of the things that I say. I'm sure I steal almost all of them from somebody else. So you're in good company. Hey, how do you avoid one of the topics that comes up over and over again when I talk to everyone in healthcare, CISOs especially? How do you avoid burnout? What are you doing with you and your team? What's your approach to that? How do you keep yourself from? There's always more work. How do you stay on top of it but not go crazy?
That's a very timely question, because we've been having some of those internally. Because if you have a leader like me, that my foot just stays on the gas. I'm sending emails, I'm sending Teams messages, and sometimes I don't realize the downstream impact that has on my team, on just what they generally have on their plate. So just setting up more discussions, being more flexible on making sure that people do work-life balance, and then just making sure that people push back, because I'm like, oh, did you see, I just went to 5 last week. Did you know that we can do this, this, and this? And it's like, we don't want to just be because this is my own philosophy and I'm not trying to go against my own principles, that we don't want to just overbuy technology that we're going to only be able to implement 80%. Like we're going to go with this tool, we're all in, we're going to get to the finish, make sure it integrates with everything. So I need to be mindful because again, everything's changing so quickly. Of course, I'm like, boom, 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 we need to do this, just to be very strategic, not be overbearing, and then remember to push your team to take time off as much as you push them to go out and get the job done. So like we're doing after our chat here, I'm taking my whole team out to lunch. We're making sure that we're just having a lot more personable time, having communications, because I think we live in a crazy world, and adding in just go, go, go all the time, we're going to see burnout. It's just, just as a leader, making sure that you don't add that extra fire on what else is going on in the world. So,
is there one leadership lesson right now that healthcare CISOs and CTOs are learning the hard way? What's one thing you see people doing that you were like, oh, I wish you weren't doing that? Like, let me help you not do that. What would that be?
Well, I think buying too much without like a end goal. Like, and then like what we had talked about with integrations, a lot of what we were buying was to just build up, to be able to drive maturity, and didn't really have the vision till we were halfway along on, now we want to make sure all these talk if we're able to do a lot of these components we want to do from an automation standpoint, we're going to have to pivot. So I think just having flexibility, not trying to go too far into the future. Like I always do 3-year roadmaps, which I almost think we almost need to go to like year and a half, 2 years now.
It's unbelievable how fast things change. Yeah.
Like sometimes you just get lucky. Like I had budgeted for cloud and all of this. I'm like, see, I'm Nostradamus. I knew we were going to be looking. So sometimes you just have to get lucky, but it's about, building a foundational element that regardless of what the new hype is, AI to quantum computing to the next thing we get, that it's really just an all hazard approach, kind of like emergency management, that we're able to just pivot. And then if we do the fundamentals very well, we'll do very well. And now the fundamentals to me are identity. I'm going crazy in the identity space on a lot of different components that we're looking at, we're implementing, because again, it's 80%. That's a lot of the grades I got in college. So if I could just consistently get that college B,
nice B.
I feel like we're doing well. And then the other areas are just good hygiene and vulnerability management, different automations, but everything's root cause is always, the compromised account or this, or this. So if we can get our more complex and a lot of our other pieces into the identity piece, that I feel like we'll be doing very well as a health system.
Dude, last question, because every time you say something, it could turn into another whole show that we do. But so identity, non-human identities, human identities, AI agents, and I mean the list, equipment, service accounts, there's so many of those things. Just really quickly, like, is there some clue that you have for everyone who's struggling with how do we do identity better? How do we do better identity hygiene better? What's one tip you would give folks who are trying to figure that out right now?
Well, identity is very complex. Like it's almost own program. And that's where we're trying to compartmentalize it under like cyber operations, just because there's so many layers from PAM to MFA to, like you had said, the non-human identities. And there's a different tool, a different process, a lot of different components that just because you have MFA doesn't mean you have strong MFA.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have strong identity verification doesn't mean. So that's again, like we had talked about our process of the service desk. Like I feel like we're still in the top 5% on some of the practices we do, but by us going with Clear, putting a big investment into that, can that get us into that 2 to 3% of knowing this is going to better protect us? The human identity piece, we partnered with Silverfort, which I heard from my buddy Nate up at.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So he's great on the needle. I think he does I heard him speak at Vive. He's amazing for what he does for the industry, and
totally
if he's using it, I'm very interested. So that's something that we've been looking at for the non-human identity side of the house with that, to kind of layer into your privilege access management, your MFA, to your CrowdStrike identities, to like the identity rollback. So as you see, there's so many different layers that I guess my tidbit of advice is looking at the all of these different events that we've had look at really the anatomy of the attack.
Yeah.
So we know we've done a great job of shoring up our defenses in phishing, but say there is a compromise in a phishing, like, do you block local admin access? Then can you go and does that account have wide open access? So, just looking at all of those different components and risk-based authentication then is another safeguard of that. And
Yeah.
then,
So don't try to solve world hunger.
Yeah. So there's
the more you know, the more you realize that there are other problems. You just kind of have to prioritize and
the kill chain's just crazy in identity versus some of these other
yeah.
areas like 0 days. We know vulnerability management and is it external facing, and then kind of stops there a little bit, and then phishing
Right.
go down to these layers we talked about. But identity is I just envision that big mirror of dominoes. Like if you don't think about this and this, so we try to have the discussions of this is the end goal of what we have seen from all these various attacks. How can we put a trip in that'll stop the dominoes so that they're not going all the way and just unfettered access going all through our world. So it's can get very complex, can get very problematic too, because that's where you have to have a lot of care and feeding with working with infrastructure, to go back to what we had talked about earlier.
Right.
It's a huge project. That's where relationships, transparency, and use cases are really, really important. And then integration, that we're setting up all these little niche components. From an identity perspective, you sure as heck better know from an alerting and monitoring perspective, what is what. And then just because this tool can block this, you need to have it talking and or integrated in this to stop that kill chain. So
everything's connected to everything else. And that complication is part of the problem too.
Yeah. So understand the anatomy of the attack and just how you can shore up defenses on specific identity is just fascinating. That's the thing I'm very passionate about, and something that I feel like we're doing top notch here. So
yeah, that's great. Hey, thanks for being on the show today, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining UnHack. Remember, we're not alone in this. Every healthcare leader needs a community to lean on and learn from. Join our community at thisweekhealth.com/subscribe and share this not only with your security crew, but with your entire leadership team and staff. Together, we're stronger.